The debate that continues to rage on in relation to the X-Men in the MCU, specifically the multiverse version coming in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. For some people, for them, it's hard to believe that Professor X is the same one from the X-Men films. May I ask why? Because if it's not, then what's the point? So I touched upon this a little bit in my bigger X-Men are part of the MCU continuity now video, and people were like, okay, explain the whole Professor X thing, because I kind of just talk about it a little bit, but not really in depth. So here's the thing. If Spider-Man No Way Home brought in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and all those villains, but they weren't the same characters that we saw in those previous films. Okay, are you still following along here? Then that film would fail to deliver on the nostalgia. The reason it works is because it's those same exact characters. The same characters we last saw. It's Tobey Maguire, a decade plus later. It's Andrew Garfield, 5 to 10 years later, how much ever time has passed. The characters have grown. They reference the old continuity. They reference where they came from. That's what brings you in. That's what locks you in. That's what gives you the emotional pull. The nostalgia that you grew up on it, that you know the history, that you know who these characters are, that you have that connection. What would be the point of Marvel Studios opening up the multiverse, bringing in various other characters from other multiverses, especially someone like Professor X, played by Patrick Stewart, one of the most renowned and recognized actors in history, who defined Professor X as the live-action version of that character. When you think Professor X, you literally picture Patrick Stewart. You can't picture anybody else in that role. That's how synonymous he is with it, just like Wolverine and Hugh Jackman. So what would be the point of opening up the multiverse, of bringing in Professor X and saying, guess what? It's not the version you've seen before. This is just some random version. It's just useless, right? No, that's literally not how you do it. Then what would be the point? People would walk away disappointed. Now, we don't know how they're going to handle it, because the X-Men continuity has like 4 timelines, right? So how exactly did they do it? And another piece of evidence, because people are going to ask for it, being like, well, is there any evidence? Is there any evidence that it's the same one? I mean, yes. Deadpool 3 is going to be an MCU film. Deadpool is set in the X-Men continuity. There's more evidence, right? Do you guys see what I'm saying? The whole argument is just dumb. I don't understand why people can't just accept, yes, it's going to have to be the same Professor X. Now, what point in time? When was he ripped out and became part of the Illuminati? What happens with him? That's up for debate. We don't know how they handle that. For all we know, they could have a line in Doctor Strange where they're like, actually, yeah, all this multiverse thing, that caused our timeline to just be a complete mess. And suddenly they're going to retcon the X-Men to make more sense because the franchise couldn't do it itself. Because, like Legion had their own version of Professor X that didn't line up with anything, even though it was an X-Men series. So again, God damn it. Again, just go back to Spider-Man. Imagine Tobey Maguire shows up and he's like, oh yeah, I never fought this Doc Ock. Who's this? What? Oh, you're not the same. Cool. Well, that's pointless.